And then you kind of have a choice how you look at the rest of this. You can either see it as I'm going to subtract 4 times 4 times -6, that product, or you could say that I'm going to put that negative with the 4, and it's -4 times 4 times -6. It doesn't matter, but you have to pick how you want to view it. How do you view it out of those two options?
I'm familiar that you know what I mean, especially in the examples that I've been given here with the assignment that, when there's a negative in that 4AC portion of what's under the root, that it'll just flip that negative or that, subtraction over to a plus.
Right. So that's yet a third, yet a third way to look at it, like you just said, and to now change the sign, whatever you want. Like you have to be able to evaluate this and whatever you're comfortable with. Now, are you allowed to use a calculator like on tests? Is it
Yes.
open,
Thank
open everything?
God.
Okay, good. So I'll just drop into the chat here. This Desmos scientific calculator, one of the reasons I really like it is you can enter it exactly the way that you write it. So if you write it properly, which is, the way I'm suggesting here, I'll show you that. Let's snip that in
I'm
on my,
actually familiar with Desmos. I have been using Desmos in this class.
great.
Yep.
Great. So this scientific calculator, you just enter, you can see I've entered this line exactly the way I see it. I don't have to make any, if you used TI-83 or 84 back in the day, it was a little bit more cumbersome than just, all right, I'm just going to enter it the way I see it. So you got to get this number under the root correct. That's thing number one. All right, so this is x equals minus a -1 plus or minus the square root of 97 over 2 times 4. So if you can do all that, you're in pretty good shape here. Next thing is to decide, well, can you reduce the square root of 97? Okay, and this is where you have to do what's called a prime factorization. And like this one, I believe is prime, but I'm not sure. So the way to sort of do it correctly is you have to look at all the prime numbers, 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, and see if any of these divide 97. And you'll find that none of them work. Making sure, yes, none of them work. The reason you stop here is the whenever you get to a square, 11 squared is bigger than 97, you know that you've run out of numbers. So there is nothing that can be reduced here. Sometimes it can, sometimes it can't. So it's 1 plus or minus the square root of 97 over 8. And now you're dividing both of these by 8. It's not a choice. It's not like you'd say, oh, I like the one on the left. You have to divide them both by 8. Now, if you're uncomfortable with the fact that there's nothing to divide by, you can put a 1 in front of the root and put an 8 there. You can also just leave it so that the whole fraction bar is there. It's an 8 on the bottom. And then
Okay.
like you just noticed, you have to split apart your answers. 1/8 plus square root of 97 over 8, comma, 1/8 minus square root 97 over 8. This is what's referred to as a conjugate pair. They're only different by the operator in the middle.
Okay. 97 over, and I'm going to work through these with you. I'm kind of writing them down as you're
Sure.
going through.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's going to help.
If you have questions, please ask, please interrupt. It's about your understanding.
So at this point, based on the fact that 97 is a prime number, there really isn't any further, simplification of what we're looking at here. That
That's
is
right.
itself the answer.
That's right.
Okay.
If it were the square root of 98, we would have to reduce it.
So let's enter that really quick.
Okay.
So we got 1 over 8. And then we'll do plus square root of 97 over 8. And then we'll enter in this next one. Now, the next two will be a little bit more complicated than this one is, just because it has they have irrational numbers in them.
So you can either share your screen or drop a snip in the
Oh,
chat or
is it
email or
not
whatever.
sharing?
You have to go back and forth to reshare. You can only see one direction in the way I've got it set up here.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. Let me share the screen just so you can see what I'm entering. I'm pretty sure this one's, pretty straightforward. Over 8.
I mean, the parentheses are not needed, but they're okay as is. I mean, it'll take it.
Okay. Bada bing, man. Okay. Let's get into some of a little bit more intense stuff, which are going to be
Okay.
these ones.
All right. Do you want to get a similar question and
Let's do it. So we got
okay. So I'm gonna grab a snip here and share my screen.
equals.
All right. First thing you'll notice is that there's a constant on the right side. In standard form, everything's on one side of the equation. So you do have to move this back to the left. I would recommend doing this and not trying to figure out the A, B, and C unless it's in this standard form. So A is 4, B is 8, C is 7. All right. And the main thing is to figure out the B squared minus 4AC. Will you attempt to do that for us, please?
Yeah, of course. Give me 1 second. Let me get that written out. B squared, so that'll be 8 squared minus 4 times 4 times 7. So we got 64 minus times 4 times 7, 112. And then that should be minus 64. -4. So the square root of -48.
Okay, good. So we're gonna start there. X equals minus B minus 8 plus or minus the square root of minus 48 over 2 times 4. All right, like that. So got to come off to the side here and deal with this square root of -48. So what it really is it's the square root of -1 times 48. And then you can break that apart into the square root of -1 times the square root of 48. Is that something you've seen?
Yeah, yep. And then -1 would be sorry, the square root of -1 would be I.
Yes,
Correct.
that's correct.
Yep.
So that's the first part. And then you've got to be able to break apart the square root of 48. That's where this prime factorization is so important. So you start with 2. 2 is the smallest prime number. And you divide 48 by 2 and get 24. And like most things in life, if it works, you try it again. 24 divisible by 2, yes, that's 12. It's 12 divisible by 2, yep, that's 6. 6 divisible by 2, that's 3. So you build what's called a factor tree or a factor ladder is another way to do it. And you look for pairs. You circle pairs. Now for each pair, you can bring one out. You can bring a 2 out. You can bring another 2 out. This 3 that's left over, sorry it's on the corner there, but it has to stay in. There's nothing to pair it with, so it stays in. And we can show that going back in. So your answer, there's a part that's outside the root, and there's a part that's inside the root. So the part that's outside is the 2 and the 2 and the I, and inside is the 3.
Okay.
And the numbers, whether they're inside or outside, are always multiplying. So you can see that this becomes 4I square root of 3. Any questions on what I've done up to this point?
No, this is making sense.
All right. So I'm going to grab this and come down here. So we're going to replace the square root of -48 with 4i square root of 3, all divided by 8. And again, you're dividing both by 8, not a choice. You have to do both. And I think it'd be better if you show the division by 8 in front of the coefficient, because you cannot divide inside the root. This 8 can never go inside the root, nothing to do with that. It's only the thing on the outside. So you got -1 plus or minus 4 divided by 8 is 1/2. So it's I over 2 square root of 3, like that. And then you have to write it two different ways. -1 plus I over 2 square root of 3, -1 minus I over 2 square root of 3.
Gotcha. So it's essentially I over 2 multiplied by the square root of 3, which makes sense because 3
Yeah.
would be 3 over 1 or whatever. Yeah.
N-
Okay.
Now you can also write it like this if there's several ways to write it, and they're all correct. You just have to be comfortable that however you want to enter it. It should accept all of these.
Gotcha. Okay. So since that's our answer, and I believe that I did get this one wrong, let me give it a go in terms of entering it. I'm going to share my screen just so you can
Okay,
see
sounds good.
exactly what I'm doing on my end.
All right,
All
I'm
right.
seeing your screen.
So we have -1 here. I'll do the parentheses or whatever. And you're saying that's not necessary in this.
It is not necessary.
Okay, I'm just going to do it without then. -1, we'll do plus I over 2 multiplied by the square root of 3.
Comma, comma. You need another one.
Oh, and I didn't do it. Yeah, okay. Yeah. It did accept half of it. So that is the
Yes,
correct form.
yes,
And assuming
yeah.
that I had done a comma and a minus, man, I
Yes,
apologize that.
that's okay.
All right, let's try another one. Is that the same one that we literally just got? It sure looks like
It
it.
is. It is. Yeah.
I'm just gonna re-enter it then. -1 plus I over 2 square root of 3, and then comma -1 minus the I over 2 square root of 3. Okay. Take two. Bada bing, man. Ah, dude, that is such a relief.
Good. It's good.
It's just gonna go keep cycling through that one. So let's move on to this guy right here.
Okay. I'll grab a snip and share my screen.
And then, I mean, I hate to, it's cool if you can or can't or whatever. But after we work through this one, would you be willing to just maybe throw one out at me and see if I can work through it and get to the same answer that you are?
I mean, I would just encourage you to work through this one.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Independent. I mean, what we can do here is I don't have to talk. You can either I can you can take 2 minutes and see if you want to work it out, 3 minutes, whatever you need, and then I can work it out. Um,
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind working it out on your end, let me try and get my end without any kind of like input real quick, just to see if I'm landing on this through memory and everything. And see
okay.
if we're landing on the same answer. A, B, C, so negative. 172. Three. 72 thirds. Minus. Okay. So what I got, are you ready?
Yep.
All right, so what I got was -2/3 plus or minus I multiplied by the square root of the square root of 18 over 9.
Okay, so we got a issue with reducing the square root of 72. So let's just take a look at that together.
Okay.
So 72, you always start with 2, 2 and 36, 2 and 18, 2 and 9, and then 2 no longer works. You use 3 and 3.
Okay.
You look for pairs. Pair of 2s, pair of 3s. This means a 2 comes out. This one means a 3 comes out. And then a 2 stays in. So it's 2 times 3 on the outside, square root of 2 on the inside. So it becomes 6 square root of 2.
I get it because 18, yep, 9 times 2. That totally makes sense, man. Yep.
Yeah, that's a separate skill. They usually introduce it prior to quadratic formula, but I wouldn't know exactly what you guys did in your class, but that's, yeah, I can give you, I could give you some examples of this if you wanted, but pretty good overall. I mean, most students really struggle with this, so you're way ahead with that.
No, that really helps, man. That's just kind of
Yeah. So you're dividing both of them by 18, and you can see the 6 over 18 becomes the 1/3 or just the I over 3.
that totally makes sense, man. And you're just leaving the square alone. You don't divide that
Yeah.
for sure.
All
Okay.
right. All right. So that's gonna kind of do it for us for today for our try it out lesson.